abandoned, freezing, and hopeless, until a human opened the door and changed everything. HFY. It drifted in the dark between stars, far beyond safe routes, far beyond the places where help ever came. Long ago, maps had marked this region as empty. Then, over time, even the maps stopped mentioning it. Space here was cold, silent, and forgotten. Inside the station, the cold was winning. The walls trembled as old metal shrank under falling temperatures. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting long shadows across narrow corridors. Every breath felt heavy, thin, and painful. Heat had been cut to the lowest level days ago. Power was being rationed minute by minute. 5 figures huddled inside the central control room. They were not human. Their bodies were wrapped in layers of worn survival fabric, patched so many times that the original color was impossible to tell. Frost formed along the edges of control panels. Small clouds of breath rose and vanished in the weak air circulation. One of them, tall and narrow with slow, stiff movements, pressed trembling fingers against a console. "No response," he said quietly. The others did not ask what he meant. They already knew. No response meant no rescue. No response meant no one was coming. A smaller crew member sat against the wall, knees pulled close, trying to conserve heat. Her eyes were half closed, not asleep, but lost somewhere between fear and exhaustion. "We sent the signal again," she said. "Didn't we?" "Yes," another answered. His voice was rough, damaged by days of dry air and stress. "We sent it every cycle, on every frequency allowed, and on some that aren't." Silence filled the room again. The station had once been a minor research outpost, built to study strange gravitational waves that passed through this region of space. It was never meant for long-term survival. When funding dried up, it was abandoned. Automated systems were supposed to shut it down completely, but the crew had arrived years later chasing rumors of leftover data and forgotten equipment. Their ship had failed during docking. One small mistake, one broken seal, one bad calculation. Now their ship was dead, and the station was dying with them. The tall crew member leaned back, his joints creaking. "We are outside all recognized borders," he said. "No authority claims this place, so we do not matter," the smaller one whispered. No one argued. They had known it from the start, but saying it aloud made it heavier. The station shuddered again. A low, warning tone echoed through the room. Power drop. Another system shutting down. They checked the readings, even though they already knew the answer. Life support was holding. Barely. Heat would last maybe another day if they stayed still and used nothing. Food was not the problem. Cold was. Cold always won in the end. The last crew member, broad and scarred, stared at the darkened main screen. "If the signal reached anyone," he said slowly, "they decided not to answer." That truth hurt more than the cold, because it meant the galaxy had heard them and turned away. Time passed strangely after that. Minutes felt like hours. Hours blurred together. The lights dimmed further, as if even they were tired. Then, without warning, a new sound cut through the quiet. A sharp beep, short, clear, not an alarm. The tall crew member froze. His hand hovered over the console. "Did you hear that?" The others lifted their heads. Another beep followed. Then another. A signal ping, active, real. The console screen flickered, struggling as power rerouted. Faint lines of data appeared. External contact detected. For a moment, no one spoke. Fear crept in beside hope. Unknown contact in this region was often worse than no contact at all. Is it automated? The smaller one asked. The tall crew member shook his head slowly. No known system uses this pattern. The broad one stood, ignoring the pain in his joints. Could be a scavenger. That possibility hung in the air. Scavengers did not rescue. They stripped. They took. Sometimes they killed survivors to save resources. The ping grew stronger. Something was close. Sensors that had been half dead for weeks suddenly spiked. An object was approaching the station. Fast. Too fast. That speed is impossible, the scarred one said. No ship should be able to travel like that without tearing itself apart. The object slowed suddenly, dropping out of high-speed travel just outside visual range. The station groaned as its ancient sensors tried to lock on. A rough image formed on the main screen. It was a ship, but it was nothing like the sleek vessels they knew. Its surface was uneven, patched with different metals and visible weld lines. Sections looked older than the station itself. External modules were bolted on without symmetry. Heat vents glowed bright orange, fighting against the cold of space. It looks broken, the smaller crew member said. Or stubborn, the tall one replied. The ship did not transmit any standard identification. No warnings, no demands, no claim. It simply moved closer. The station's automated systems reacted on instinct. Defensive protocols, long unused, tried to activate, twitched uselessly. "Shut it down!" the scarred one ordered. "We don't want to look hostile." A tall crew member disabled the system with shaking hands. The unknown ship aligned itself with the station's primary docking port. "That port hasn't worked in years," someone muttered. "The docking clamps engaged anyway." Metal connected with metal. The impact echoed through the station, deep and solid. For the first time in days, the structure felt steady. "What are they doing?" the smaller one asked. Before anyone could answer, another alert sounded. Docking sequence initiated. "From the outside?" the tall one said in disbelief. "That should be impossible without our authorization." The old door mechanisms groaned, protesting movement they had not made in years. Ice cracked and fell from the frame as the outer airlock door began to slide open. Cold space stared back at them. Then a shape appeared. A single figure moved through the opening, magnetic boots locking onto the station floor. The figure wore a thick suit, scratched and burned, layered with tools and external power packs. The suit visor was clear. Inside was a face none of them had seen in person before. Human. The figure paused, looking around at the frost-covered corridor, the flickering lights, the thin air. Then he raised one gloved hand in a simple wave. "Hey," he said over an open channel. His voice was calm, steady, almost casual. "You folks alive in here?" For a moment, no one could speak. The smaller crew member felt tears freeze at the corners of her eyes. The tall one found his voice first. You opened the door?" The human nodded, as if this was nothing special.
Yeah.
It was stuck. Had to persuade it.
He stepped fully inside, carrying a heavy pack on his back. As he moved, small devices dropped from his hands onto the floor.
They unfolded, glowing softly. Heat spilled into the corridor, real heat. Warmth spread through the metal, pushing the cold back inch by inch. Lights brightened as power levels rose. The station breathed again. The human looked around at their stunned faces. "Sorry I'm late," he said. "Signal was weak. Took a while to track." The scarred crew member stared at him. "Why?" he asked. "Why come here?" The human shrugged. Because you called. No speeches, no pride, no hesitation. Just that. Behind him, his ship hummed, loud and alive, refusing to let the dark have the last word. And for the first time since they were stranded, the station no longer felt like a grave. The human moved through the station as if he had been there many times before. Every step he took seemed deliberate, careful, and precise, but he moved fast enough to show he was confident. The crew followed him, frozen in a mix of disbelief and hope. He stopped at a control panel and pressed buttons they had forgotten existed. Lights returned to corridors, the hum of machinery filled the air, and gravity systems corrected minor faults. The warmth spread slowly, chasing away the cold that had been their constant enemy. Steam hissed as heating coils came back to life, and the emergency lights dimmed in relief. One of the crew, the smaller one, stepped closer. How are you doing all this?" she asked, her voice trembling. The human did not look at her. His hands moved from panel to panel, sliding a repair tool over broken circuits. "Old stations like this are like puzzles," he said. "You just have to understand the pieces." Another crew member, the tall one, frowned. "No human has ever operated in this region alone."
It's too far. Too dangerous.
"How did you get here?" The human finally looked up, a faint smile on his face. "I followed the signal. That's all. Nothing complicated. You called for help, so I came." The scarred one shook his head. "Nobody comes here. Not from any fleet, not from any government, not even for rescue missions."
You could be dead out there. You could have been destroyed by gravity spikes, rogue debris, or pirates.
"And yet, you made it." The human shrugged. "Didn't seem like a good reason to stay away." Silence fell for a moment. The crew could not argue. The station was no longer dead, thanks to him. Heat was coming back. Lights were coming back. Even air was thicker and easier to breathe. For the first time, they could feel their skin warming again, their muscles relaxing after long stiffness. The cold was losing. "Name's Rian," he said suddenly.
I...
"I don't work for anyone. I just help." The tall crew member's voice was soft. "Why would a human help us when no one else would?" Rian did not answer immediately. He bent down and picked up a small console that had fallen behind a panel. He pressed a few keys, and a faint hum started. "We humans don't like leaving things unfinished. We don't like leaving people to freeze in the dark." The crew exchanged looks. There was no arrogance in his voice, no pride, just calm determination. It was almost unsettling how normal he was in the face of impossible odds. Ryan moved to the main corridor. "We need to check the station. Some systems are unstable." "Wow." "Life support is barely functional, and the main reactor is old. If we do not fix it soon, we'll be back to cold and dark." The broad crew member took a deep breath. "We've tried everything. We don't know how to restart the reactor fully. Every attempt fails." Ryan glanced at him. "Then we try differently," the tall one asked, hesitant. "Differently how?" "By not doing what everyone else would do," Ryan replied. "By using what we have instead of wishing for what we don't." He set down his pack and opened it. Inside were tools, spare circuits, wires, and small gadgets they did not recognize. Some looked almost primitive, but others glowed faintly, clearly high-tech. He began repairing a junction manually, connecting broken circuits with careful hands. Sparks flew and the smell of ozone filled the air, but the station hummed more steadily. The crew watched in awe. Every piece he touched seemed to awaken. responding to his touch like the station knew he would not abandon it. The flickering lights stabilized, and the temperature climbed a few degrees. The emergency monitors, long silent, began to flash again with green signals. The smaller crew member could not stop herself. You really did all this by yourself? Rian looked at her, calm as ever. I am not alone.
You're here. You help too.
I just know how to start the fire. They followed him deeper into the station. Old labs, frozen corridors, and abandoned control rooms passed by. The station had been empty for years, but Ryan's presence made it feel alive again. Every movement of his was purposeful, never wasted. He reset failing systems, realigned sensors, and restored minor gravity distortions in the hallways. With every adjustment, the crew felt safer, though the danger of the outside world had not vanished. A sudden alarm rang out, though it was not an emergency. Sensors outside the station had detected a small anomaly near the docking bay. The crew froze, expecting trouble, but Rian just smiled. Docking bay sensors show someone coming, maybe inspecting. Could be automated. I'd be curious. Let's see. He walked to the observation window. Outside, the human ship rested steadily, engines idling. It did not move aggressively. It seemed patient, calculated, almost confident. Rian tapped on the window. See?
Nothing to worry about. The tall crew member shook his head.
Confidence in space does not mean safety. Ryan ignored him, focused on his work. He opened the ship's remote interface and began downloading energy readings, calibrating the reactor, and rerouting power to critical systems. It was complex, beyond what the crew had hoped to accomplish even together, but he made it seem natural. Hours passed in silence except for the hum of the reactor and the occasional hiss of heating coils. Finally, Rian stepped back and looked at them. That should hold, he said. I owe Jan, for now. We are not out of danger, but we are alive. The scarred crew member exhaled. Alive? After all this? I cannot remember the last time I felt this. Rian smiled faintly. That is the point. You are alive now.
That is what matters.
The rest can wait. The smaller crew member stared at him. You didn't even ask for anything in return. No orders, no reward, no authority. Why? Rian crouched to eye level. Because it is the right thing to do. Someone called, someone needed help, and I came. That is enough reason. The tall crew member was quiet for a long time. He had seen humans before, but not like this. Not willing to risk everything without thought for profit, politics, or fear. This human had crossed impossible distances to save strangers. He had no plan, no backing, just a single purpose. The station seemed to breathe easier under Rian's presence. Systems that had been failing for years worked again. Small vents pumped warmth into rooms, gravity stabilized, and the emergency lights dimmed to normal levels. Even the frost receded from the walls. Suddenly, Rian's attention snapped to the main console. We have to check external systems. Station may be stable inside, but outside, danger waits. The broad crew member groaned. Danger has been waiting for weeks. Rian did not smile. Then let's not keep it waiting. Knowledge is power. Systems outside must be monitored. If we ignore it, we are blind. And blind is death in space. They followed him to the main observation deck. The black void stretched endlessly, filled with distant stars and nothing else. But on the sensors, small movements caught the eye. Tiny debris, faint energy signatures, and distant objects drifted, unnoticed before. "See that?" Rian asked. Most would ignore. Most would think it's nothing. But these are clues. They tell a story. The station is not as alone as it seems. The scarred crew member frowned. "You mean someone might come?" "Maybe," Rian said. "Or maybe something worse. Either way, knowing is better than guessing." The crew nodded, understanding for the first time that they were not just being saved, they were being prepared. Ryan did not only fix the station, he made them ready to survive beyond it. Hours blurred. The human worked without pause, moving from console to console, repairing, rerouting, and reinforcing. Every action seemed simple, yet it was impossible without knowledge, courage, and skill. The crew could only follow instructions, learning from him silently. Finally, he paused. Sweat and frost marked his face and suit. "Enough for now," he said. "We rest. Systems are stable. Air is warm. Gravity is normal. Food will survive this cycle. You survive today. That is enough." The crew exchanged glances. They had survived days before, but this was different. Now survival was not just endurance, it was safety, warmth, and hope. The station felt like a home, fragile but alive, and it was all because of one human who refused to leave them behind. As they settled into temporary comfort, the smaller crew member whispered, almost to herself, "Why him? Why now?" The tall crew member replied quietly, almost as if talking to the walls, "I do not know. But and humans, they do things differently." Outside, the black void waited, silent and patient. But inside the station, life continued, warmth spreading from the heart of a human who had opened the door and refused to let the cold and darkness win. The station hummed with new life, though its systems were still fragile. The crew moved with cautious energy, following Rion as he checked every control panel, vent, and sensor. The warmth in the hallways was welcome, but outside, the darkness of space remained cold and threatening. Rian crouched over a small console, tapping at keys and adjusting a few wires. "Life support is solid now," he said. "We have about 6 days at full efficiency before we need serious repairs. Heat is stable. Air is clean. Water systems are back online. We are alive, and that is step 1. The tall crew member nodded. "Step 1? That means step 2 is coming." "What else do we need to worry about?" Ryan did not look up immediately. "Outside threats. This station may be abandoned, but nothing in space stays alone for long. We are in unclaimed space, yes, but the galaxy never forgets resources, and we have something valuable here, even if you do not see it yet." The scarred crew member frowned. "Valuable? All we have are old sensors, a reactor about to die, and frost-covered hallways. Those are just the pieces," Ryan said. "The real value is life, presence, and access. A station that can be reactivated in a dead zone is worth attention. If someone notices, we may not be alone for long." He stood, moving toward the observation deck. "We need to prepare, not with weapons, not yet, with knowledge and positioning. Understand what moves near us before it becomes a problem." The smaller crew member watched him, nervous. "You mean pirates? Or worse?" "Maybe both. Maybe neither," Ryan said. "Space is unpredictable, but humans learn to anticipate. You watch, you measure, and you act." He tapped a button, opening external cameras and sensors that had been offline for years. Tiny dots appeared on their screens, drifting slowly past the station. Some were just fragments of debris. Others were small, automated probes, likely exploring abandoned zones. Every blip mattered. Rian adjusted the trajectory calculations. See those? He pointed at a line of small objects. Automated drones, scavengers, maybe survey probes. They do not care about you yet, but they will report what they see. Every signal counts. Humans pay attention to patterns others ignore. The tall crew member leaned closer. And you plan to do what with them? Attack them? Ryan shook his head. Not yet. Knowledge first. Reaction second. If we act too soon, we look weak. If we wait too long, we risk danger. Timing is everything. Hours passed as Rian monitored the signals. He moved from panel to panel, drawing data from the station's old systems, merging it with his portable devices. The crew followed him, helping as best they could, learning how to read anomalies, recognize unusual energy spikes, and understand small movements in space that meant big risks. Finally, Rian looked up. We are not alone, not fully. But neither are we helpless. That is the difference. The broad crew member, still skeptical, asked, How can we stop someone bigger than us? They have fleets.
We have a station that barely functions. Ryan smiled faintly. We do not need fleets.
We need tactics, patience, and creativity. Being outmatched is not the same as being beaten. Humans have a way of using what is small to influence what is large. The crew stared at him. The concept was strange, almost impossible. They had always relied on power, numbers, and authority, not cunning and improvisation, Ryan continued. There are areas outside this station that are dangerous. Radiation pockets, gravity distortions, micro-debris fields. Others avoid them. Everybody. Humans do not always avoid danger. We learn to use it. Obstacles become tools. Hazards become shields. The scarred crew member shook his head slowly. That sounds reckless? Not reckless, Ryan corrected. Calculated. You measure, you understand, and then you act. You do not move blindly. But you also do not wait for someone else to save you. They spent the next cycle inspecting the station and preparing systems. Ryan showed them ways to reroute power quickly, repair minor failures, and monitor external threats without leaving the observation deck. Every adjustment was small but critical. Every change gave them more control over a situation that had seemed hopeless. During the night cycle, alarms suddenly sounded. A small probe had come too close to the station. Automated defense protocols tried to activate, but Rian stopped them. Not yet, he said. We observe first. Reaction second. Panic now will ruin everything. They watched the probe drift past. It scanned the station, collected data, and then moved away. The station remained undamaged. Rian exhaled slowly. Information gathered. We know what we face. That is advantage. The crew looked at him in awe. Every decision he made was deliberate. Even when he allowed something to approach, it was part of his plan. The station had been abandoned and hopeless, but under his guidance, they were learning to survive, and maybe even fight back if necessary. In the following hours, Rian worked to strengthen the station's weak points. He repaired small energy nodes, patched heat leaks, and recalibrated the sensors. The station was still fragile, but it was alive, responsive, and ready to act. Rest if you must, Rian said. But watch the screens. Knowledge is our first weapon. Everything else comes later. The crew settled into their posts, keeping half an eye on Ryan and half on the monitors. For the first time, fear was tempered by understanding. They had someone who could guide them, someone who refused to leave them in hopeless cold. Days passed. More probes and drones passed nearby. Ryan analyzed every movement, every signal, every anomaly. He taught the crew to anticipate patterns, to predict behavior, to see danger before it arrived. Each lesson gave them confidence. One day, the tall crew member asked, "Will they come here eventually?" "Maybe," Ryan said. "Maybe not, but we will be ready." Humans prepare, not because danger is certain, but because survival is necessary. We make the odds work in our favor. The smaller crew member whispered to herself, "I never thought anyone would come." Rion heard her. He looked at her and said, "I came because someone needed help." And that is enough reason for a human. Even as the station hummed and heat spread, Rian reminded them that their safety was temporary. They were alive today, but tomorrow, space could change the rules. He taught them to watch, to measure, and to respond. At night, when the crew rested, Rian worked alone. He examined old logs, repaired minor damage, and observed the dark void outside. His presence was a shield, but also a teacher. He showed them that humans did not wait for help. Humans acted, adapted, and survived. For the first time in weeks, the crew slept in warmth, under light, and without fear of immediate death. But they knew that survival depended on vigilance, and that Rion had shown them how to be vigilant. Outside, small dots of movement continued. Space was never still. But inside, the station was alive. And that was because one human had refused to leave, had refused to ignore a call for help. The crew had learned a new lesson. Survival was not just endurance. It was knowledge, action, and courage. The station did not feel quiet anymore. It felt alert. Soft sounds filled the corridors. Fans moved air. Power lines hummed with steady energy. Screens showed data instead of warnings. The crew moved with purpose now, no longer slow from cold or fear. Rion's presence had changed the rhythm of the place. He stood in the observation deck, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the dark outside. Small lights moved across the sensor display. Not debris, not natural drift. "These are not simple probes anymore," he said calmly. "They are watching." The tall crew member stepped beside him. "Watching us?" "Yes," Rian replied. "Watching the station. Watching my ship. Measuring response times. This is how interest becomes intent." The smaller crew member swallowed. "So someone is coming." Ryan nodded once. "Eventually, the question is not if, it is when, and how prepared we are when they arrive." The scarred crew member clenched his hands. "We are not soldiers. This station was never meant for defense." Ryan turned to face him. "Neither was my ship, but humans learned to turn tools into shields." He walked to a nearby console and began adjusting settings. Old external panels shifted position outside the station, slowly rotating. The crew watched the display in confusion. "Bad." "What are you doing?" the broad one asked. "Changing how we look," Rian said. Most species rely on clean scans, predictable shapes, standard energy use. Humans break patterns, confuse sensors, make enemies hesitate. The station's profile on external scans began to blur. Heat signatures scattered. Power readings fluctuated in controlled waves. If they cannot understand us, Rian continued, they will not rush us. Hours later, a new signal appeared. This one was different. It was not passive. It was direct. An automated message repeated across open space, cold and official. Unregistered station detected. Power restored without authorization. Declare claim or vacate. The crew froze. The tall one whispered, "They found us." Rian did not move. They always do. This is not an attack. It is a test. A test? The smaller one asked. To see if we are weak, Rian said. Or desperate. Another message followed, sharper than the first. Failure to respond will result in seizure. The scarred crew member looked at Rian. What do we do? Rian walked to the central transmitter. He did not increase power. He did not hide the signal. Tch! He opened a channel. This station is occupied, he said evenly. Rescue and recovery in progress. There was a pause, then a reply. Identify authority. Rian smiled slightly. Human, he said. Silence followed. The crew stared at him. That's it? The tall one asked. That's enough, Rian replied. Minutes passed. The sensors showed movement. Larger shapes now. Ships. Not a fleet, but not small either. They stayed at a distance, watching. They do not like uncertainty, Rian explained. Humans create it. The broad crew member whispered, what if they attack anyway? Then we make them regret choosing us, Rian said. He began giving instructions. Clear, simple, calm. Route excess power to outer shields. Do not overload. Slow and steady. The crew obeyed. Prepare emergency venting systems. Not to escape, to blind sensors if needed. Hands moved fast over consoles. Redirect old mining lasers. They are not weapons, but they can confuse targeting systems. The crew hesitated. Those are unstable. So are humans, Rian replied. The station changed again. It did not look strong. It looked unpredictable. The first hostile scan hit the station like a cold wind. Systems flickered, but held. They are probing defenses, the tall one said. Rian nodded. Let them. Another scan. Stronger this time, the smaller crew member's voice shook. Rian, they are getting closer. I know, he said. They expect fear.
Give them patience instead. Then the message came. This region is under claim.
Vacate immediately. Rian responded without hesitation. Negative. Lives aboard. We are staying. A long pause followed. The crew felt it, that moment when decisions were made far away. Suddenly, alarms blared. They fired a warning shot, the scarred one shouted. The station shook as energy passed nearby. Not a direct hit.
A message. Rian stayed calm.
Return nothing. Hold position. The crew stared at him. They could destroy us, the broad one said. They could, Rian agreed. But they won't yet. Not until they are sure. Minutes dragged on. Then something unexpected happened. The enemy ships shifted formation. Not toward attack. Away. They're pulling back, the tall one said in disbelief. Rian exhaled slowly. Good. They are cautious now. The station remained silent as the ships retreated to long range. They did not leave. They waited. The smaller crew member sat down heavily. That was too close. Rian nodded. That was only the beginning. He turned to face the crew. Listen carefully. They will come back. Stronger, with more authority, more force. But now they know one thing. What? The scarred one asked. That we are not alone. That a human stands here? The crew exchanged looks. Fear was still there, but something else stood beside it now. Trust? What happens next? The tall one asked. Ryan looked at the stars. Next, we prepare to defend not just this station, but the idea behind it. That abandoned places still matter. That lives are not resources to be claimed. He placed his hand on the console. Humans do not always win by force. We win by refusing to step aside. Outside, the enemy ships waited in the dark. Inside, the station stood ready. And for the first time, the crew understood that the door the human had opened did more than bring warmth. It brought defiance. The enemy ships did not leave. They stayed at a distance, silent and patient, like predators waiting for weakness. The station floated between them and the endless dark, small and fragile by comparison. Inside, the crew worked without rest. Fear pushed them, but so did something new. Purpose. Rian stood at the central console, eyes moving across data streams. They are calling for authority, he said. Bigger ships, official control.
This is how they work. They do not rush.
They overwhelm. The tall crew member swallowed. Then this is it. When they return, we will not be able to stop them. Ryan looked at him. Stopping them was never the goal. Then what is? The smaller one asked. Surviving, Rian replied, and making them pay for every step they take. He moved fast now. His calm did not fade, but urgency filled his actions. We cannot match their firepower, so we change the field. The scarred crew member frowned. Change the field? Yes, Ryan said. Space itself is the battlefield. We use what they avoid. He pulled up a map of the surrounding region. Gravity distortions glowed faintly on the screen. Radiation pockets drifted slowly. Debris fields twisted like invisible storms. They will approach from the safest route, Ryan continued. Large ships always do. They trust strength. We will make that trust hurt. The broad crew member stared. You want to pull them into hazards? I want to invite them, Rian said. The crew exchanged uneasy looks, but did not argue. They had seen enough to trust him. Hours later, long-range sensors screamed. They're coming, the tall one said. This time it was not a test group. Heavy ships emerged from the dark, their shapes clean and perfect, glowing with controlled power. They formed a wide arc around the station. A message came through, louder and colder than before. This station is under unlawful occupation. Vacate immediately. Resistance will be met with force. The smaller crew member's hand shook. They mean it. Rian opened the channel. Lives aboard. Rescue in progress. Any attack will be recorded and shared. There was no reply. Instead, weapons powered up. Shields up, Ryan ordered. The station trembled as energy fields flared to life. Old systems screamed but held. The first shot hit. Not a warning. A real attack. The impact shook the station violently. Panels sparked. Alarms blared. Damage to outer hull, the scarred one shouted. Reroute power, Ryan said calmly. Now! Another blast passed close, tearing debris from the station's exterior. Gravity shifted briefly, throwing the crew against their restraints. They're not holding back, the tall one said. Neither are we, Rion replied. He activated the mining lasers. They were not weapons. They were tools, weak, unfocused, and unstable. But Rion did not aim them at the ships. He aimed them at space. Beams cut through debris fields, vaporizing fragments and sending clouds of charged particles into the path of the enemy fleet. "What are you doing?" the broad one shouted. "Blinding them," Rion said. Enemy sensors flickered. Targeting systems struggled. Confusion spread through their formation. The station vented energy suddenly, releasing bursts of heat and radiation into nearby gravity distortions. The field twisted violently. One enemy ship drifted too close. Its shields flared, then failed. The ship spun, dragged by forces it could not escape. "They're losing control," the smaller crew member whispered. Another ship fired wildly, missing the station and hitting its own ally. "Keep pressure," Ryan ordered. "Do not let them stabilize." The station shook again as another hit landed, closer this time. A section of the hull cracked as
We're taking heavy damage, the tall one warned.
"I know," Ryan said. A hold. Then his ship moved. The human vessel detached from the station and surged forward, engines burning bright. It flew straight into the chaos, weaving between gravity waves and debris like it belonged there. "He's leaving us?" the smaller one cried.
No, the scarred one said slowly. He's drawing them away. Enemy ships turned to pursue the human vessel.
That was the mistake. They followed him straight into the worst of the distortions. Ryan's ship danced where theirs struggled. It scraped hull plating, lost panels, burned systems, but it kept moving.
The enemy ships did not. One slammed into a debris cloud and exploded.
Another lost power and drifted helplessly. The remaining ships broke formation. Retreat signals flashed. "They're pulling back," the tall one shouted. The station trembled one last time as enemy fire ceased. Silence returned. The crew stared at the screens, breathing hard. They were alive. The human ship limped back toward the station, scarred and burning, but intact. Docking clamps engaged. Ryan stepped back inside, suit damaged, face marked with blood and frost. "You're hurt," the smaller one said. "I've been worse," he replied. The tall crew member looked at him with awe. "You fought an entire force with a station and a broken ship?" Rian shook his head. "No, we survived them." The scarred crew member laughed weakly. "They will not forget this." "Good," Rian said. "Neither will the galaxy." Outside, the enemy fleet retreated into the dark, damaged and confused. Inside, the station stood, wounded but alive. The crew knew one thing now. This was no longer just about survival. This was about what happens when humans refuse to step aside. And the fight was not over. The station rested quietly, but the silence was different now. It was not the quiet of death. It was the calm after action, a brief peace before the next challenge. The crew moved through corridors, checking systems, repairing minor damage, and breathing easier than they had in weeks. The warmth was steady, and for the first time, hope did not feel fragile. Rian stood in the observation deck, surveying the empty space beyond. The enemy fleet had retreated far enough that their signals were weak. The station had survived, battered but whole, and its crew had learned what they were capable of. The tall crew member approached him. "They will return," he said quietly, "and next time, they will be stronger." Ryan nodded. "They may try, but we have gained more than just time. We have gained experience. They will hesitate now because they know a human will not yield easily." The smaller crew member looked at the sensors, still scanning the dark void. "I never thought anyone would come for us. We were abandoned, frozen, hopeless. And now, Ryan said, "you know we are never truly alone if someone hears the call." The scarred crew member shook his head slowly, still staring at the faint shapes in the distance. "I did not expect to survive this. And yet, we did. And it was not luck." Ryan smiled faintly. "It was determination and understanding how to turn every challenge into a tool. The universe tests everyone." They walked together through the station, checking repairs, rerouting power, and making small adjustments. Ryan moved with efficiency, his calm presence inspiring confidence. The crew worked with him, following his instructions, learning to adapt, and seeing that survival required both courage and thought. Outside, a faint signal began to echo. It was long range, coming from a distant fleet. Not the same enemy, but observers who had noticed the battle. The galaxy was watching, surprised that a small human ship and an abandoned station could repel a stronger force. Ryan adjusted the sensors to track the new signals. "The galaxy is noticing," he said. "Not for what you think, not because we have power, but because we refuse to die quietly." The tall crew member frowned. "They will send more next time." "Perhaps," Ryan replied. "But next time, we will be ready." Every system, every crew member, every strategy we use today will be improved. Humans do not stop learning. The smaller crew member approached him. "What about you? You came here alone. You risked everything. You could have died." Ryan looked at her. Someone had to answer the call. I knew the risks. Humans do not ignore a chance to help. That is who we are. It is not about recognition. It is about doing what is right when no one else will. The scarred crew member laughed softly. "I will never understand humans fully." "You act without logic sometimes. But somehow, you survive and teach the rest of us to survive too." Ryan shrugged. "Logic is part of it, but courage and refusal are stronger. Systems fail, ships fail, numbers fail, but refusal? Refusal carries power no one can measure until it is seen." Hours passed as they repaired, strengthened, and learned. The station, once abandoned, was now alive. Systems were functional. Heat flowed steadily. Gravity was stable. Sensors scanned space actively, monitoring every movement, every signal, every anomaly. The crew had learned to anticipate patterns and respond. They had survived an attack that should have destroyed them, and they had done it because a human had refused to leave. Finally, a long-range communication arrived. Rescue fleets had traced the signals. They were coming from nearby space, human and allied forces, curious about the strange battle reports. They would arrive soon. The crew gathered to watch the screens, faces lit by the glow of incoming ships. They were still alive. They had survived. And the one who had changed everything, who had brought warmth, courage, and skill, prepared to leave quietly before the arrival of authority. The tall crew member asked, "Will you stay with us?" Ryan shook his head. "No. My job here is done. Others will come now, seeing what is possible. But remember this, never wait for rescue. When someone calls, if you can answer, do it. Do not hesitate. Do not assume it is impossible. That is how humans survive in the impossible. The smaller crew member held her hands together. Will they know it was you? Rion smiled faintly. They may not, but it does not matter. What matters is that the door was opened, lives were saved, and hope returned. He moved to the docking bay, engines humming softly. The station remained fully operational, a beacon of survival in dead space. He paused at the airlock, looking back at the crew. You have learned well. Now, carry it forward. The universe watches, but humans do not wait for approval. We act. With that, he left the station, moving into the dark expanse alone once more. A human among the stars, leaving behind warmth, courage, and a lesson that would echo for years. The crew watched him disappear into the void. The station was no longer abandoned. It was alive, full of energy, hope, and the knowledge that humans do not accept hopelessness. They learn that survival comes from action, courage, and refusal to yield. And somewhere in the distance, another signal began to call. The crew would answer it, carrying the lesson of the human who had changed everything.